Hi everyone, I'm Tom and today I'm going to be showing you Aetherspire, which is a new cooperative game where we play as heroes trying to protect our realm from the elements that are rushing through the rift to destroy us. We start out with not much, just one little platform to start building up our defenses. The aim of the game is to build floors of the same element. Once we are 4 floors up, it's a 3D game we are building up, but it's not a dexterity game. You're not judged on your balancing. Basically, there are 4 elements. We want to build 4 floors of that same element high, stack a spire on top of it. We can do that 4 times. Brilliant. On the way to stop us, though, we will have invaders round to round. We have elemental bosses, one of each, that are going to surprise us with their scary abilities. And I'll show you how it works. So this is on Kickstarter right now from Phase Shift Games, who you might recognise from games that I've covered before, like Dungeon Drop and Drop Drive. We're not dropping here, not intentionally anyway. So I've got the game set up for 2 players here. There is a solo mode and special solo heroes. You can play with more, but on your turn, there is a supply phase. So Lily the Warden can go first. In your supply phase, you draw a floor from the supply. We have floors in the supply of 3 different sizes. These enormous ones are just going to go on these spaces on the floor, and you can kind of see the outlines. Once we have filled these spaces with pillars, we'll be able to put a floor that we've got in our reserve on top of those pillars and then keep building up, so we've got our 4 floors of the same type. This floor we start with, and the backs of all of the floors, is a multi-floor, so we can count it as any colour. So we can start building more from the bottom. I am going to choose to add a great big floor to the reserve, so I draw the topmost one from the pile. This is in our reserve now, possibly to put down on our turn. You can then do a redraw. So if I wasn't happy with this floor coming out, I could put it on the bottom of the stack and draw another one. As the game goes on, we will end up with more tiles in the reserve, so the redraw can give you more to think about than just the last one that you drew, or sometimes you want to redraw that one. We then get 3 shards from the bag. So this bag gives us shards to perform spells and abilities with. The shards go in their elemental spaces, and you basically spend a pair of shards on your turn to do the spell that's in between them. And we get 5 dice to roll. So let's see what Lily's got to work with here. Some elements. Well, that's kind of what we want. So then we go to the build phase, which is like the action phase. It's where most of our stuff is going to happen. We have a load of basic actions that anyone can do on their turn, and then we have some special actions that only your character can do. So we can use dice to place pillars in the fortress. Now this multi-floor that we've got out here, it's great that for building up it counts as any kind of floor. Any enemy can go on there. But to put pillars down, you have to spend a multi-die, which otherwise could be any symbol if we needed a different symbol. In a multi-symbol, though, I could grab a pillar and pop it on this space. When I fill all 4 spaces, we can start building up from that tower. It's not empty, though, at the start of the game. We have 2 random invaders. These are also drawn from the shard bag. So the bag is the same for shards or invaders. Sometimes bosses will make shards turn into invaders. Sometimes you can crystallize invaders into shards. So they just go on here for now, blocking our spaces. We need to do something about them to get rid of them. We've got a token. We can reroll any number of our dice once per turn, and this is flipped over to remind you that you can't use it again. You can put a floor tile from the reserve into the fortress on ground level or a matching set of pillars. So I can't do that here yet. I've only got 1 out of 4 pillars, but I could put this one that we grabbed out onto the ground, and then hey, I've got a water symbol. I could spend that to pop a pillar on one of these spaces and start building up from here. This in fact is going to build up into another large tile because we haven't got any outline of a different shape, so I'm going to need to find another big blue tile. Later on, once we've completed the floors, we can put spires on and stuff, but not yet. The other thing you can do is use your shards to cast spells. So up here with the shards that I started the game with, all I can do is Ice Beam, which is not too bad really. Crystallize 2 invaders in the same room. So I could actually cast that. These 2 go back to the bag to cast it. Crystallize 2 invaders in the same room. This is a room. They're in the same room. I can crystallize them. They turn into shards. And unfortunately, they're opposites, so I can't use them for any of the other in-between spells. But what would they do? Destroy 2 invaders. Destroys just put them back in the bag. Move an invader to any other space, and then place a pillar. Sometimes pillars are costly as well, so that could be really good. Roll 3 dice. Roll 3 dice is take them from the available ones. So dice you haven't rolled yet, dice that you've already spent. So it's giving you more dice to use on things. The other spell we can do is with any kinds of elements. It's just draw a floor tile off one of the stacks. You can pay 2 to do that, or if you pay 3, you can draw a multi-floor tile, then you can redraw 1 floor tile. Tempting as that is, I think I'm going to wait and build up our resources. And we've seen crystallize. Hi, Marty. Marty the cat, of course, a much more frightening destructive force than any rift. So that's all of the basic things, but what could Lily, our first character, do? They could discard any die to move an invader. Well, moving isn't as good as crystallizing or destroying, but if we still had those invaders here, they would be in the way, and we can't build pillars until they're gone. They can go on pillars as well, and we can't put floors down until they're off the pillars, so sometimes moving can be really good. You can discard a floor tile during an invasion to crystallize an enemy of the same element as the discarded type before it invades. We'll see invasion in a minute. It will be good to have that. And then refract is a passive ability. When casting floor crafting, which we saw earlier, spend 2 to draw a tile or 3 to draw a multi-floor tile. If you use 2 of the same colour, you can draw a multi-tile instead of a random one. Because that could be interesting for giving us options. Actually, I did say I wasn't going to draw, but I'm going to do a green and a white. So we won't use their ability to get a multi-tool. I want to draw another big tile. And maybe we'll just put that out here because I'm wasting 3 dice otherwise if I don't. And I'm just supposed to be doing an overview. I'm just doing a playthrough here. I'm excited. I want to win. So I could put this out as my green floor, or do we redraw it? So sometimes floors that you get will have abilities on them. So you see this has fewer spaces on it, which we could only build up from one side of it, which seems all right. You only need to build up one side of it to win and get your spires out. But this could be 4 spaces that invaders can come out to later. For putting it down, though, you could get a big ability, like gain 2 ether core. This is our life, essentially. When we run out of ether core, we lose. So I think I'll redraw, hopefully, get a different element and maybe another doubler. There we go, a big green one. So we could always fill this up and then get the other green on top. I think this was a green. So I could spend this to pop a pillar out on here. We're starting small. And then the other 2 dice, I haven't got anyone to move, so they're just going to have to be wasted in turn 1. So that's the build phase. Then in the invasion phase, we slide this down. If we come across a line connected to an unrevealed boss, we reveal the boss. It's going to have an ability relating to that kind of invader. Then we draw this many invaders from the bag and pop them out. So I've got a red and a white here. So they would like to go in the highest rooms. And if they're all the highest, they want to go on top of a pillar because that's higher than not. They will favour standard rooms, so they're actual tiles rather than multi-rooms. But if there's only multis, so who came out first? We'll say red will go on top of the pillar. White can go there because any invaders can go on these spaces. So they will fill up and block you and you need to do stuff to deal with them. If there's nowhere for an invader to go, first of all, they will destroy the wall of their colour and then go back to the bag. If another invader of that colour can't be placed again in the future, they will deplete an ether core and be put back in the bag. Again, if you have no ether core left, you lose the game. We've only got 2. 1 wall of each element. And then we pass the active player token. I suppose they didn't actually use their reroll, did they? Why don't we use our reroll? We've got 2 dice they're not using. Blanks. Okay, there's only a 1 in 8 chance of getting blanks on the dice. Then we can have a look at Glenn the Slicer. So Glenn's special actions. Can discard a die. Your other dice with the same face as the discarded one become wild. Brambles, discard 3 tiles to rebuild a wall and crystallize an enemy. An Emerald Cut, discard a leaf or a wild to gain a leaf element to do spells with. So let's say we do need more big ones to build up on these, or we need a medium to build up on here. I'm going to draw another big and see if we can get... I have put that other green at the bottom of the pile, so I'm going to have to probably find that again. There's maybe only 2 big ones of each colour. Maybe we should have left it out. I was hoping for a different element though. So we've got this here that basically can't be put out, but maybe we'll use it for an ability. We could redraw it in a future turn. We could redraw it now, actually. Let's do that. Start working through the pile, because we need another blue anyway. There's another blue. Or we could be drawing to get the multis, of course. An Ice Fisher. Crystallize all invaders of 2 elements. So that could be nice. We get our 3 shards for our spells. So we could either do Lava Bomb, destroy 2 invaders, Firestorm, move an invader, and place a pillar. And then our dice... So if we're all a lot of the same thing, we could be making them all wild here. Okay, so we've got, again, a wild. We can start building up this. So I know that the first boss to come out is going to be a water element. So maybe we want to try and get cracking on water. I do want to work on leaves, spreading itself out a little bit, but it's early on. I don't have any use for these elements yet, so I think use me reroll and see what we get. Oh, a couple of leaves and a wild. That would be lovely. We've nearly filled in the leaves here. I'll use the wild to pop down a green pillar. So wild could be anything, we just have to have the actual wild symbol to fill in the multi-rooms. And then let's move an invader. Let's put him in here. Can be in the wrong room, just won't go in the wrong room when they're placed in the invasion phase. To place a pillar, as soon as I get a green floor now, I could pop it down on here. I do have 2 things. If I want to just spend them, I could draw a new tile. Is there a new green on the way? Let's risk it. It wouldn't be bad to have more things in the reserve as well. So we draw, and it's a fire tile. I don't really want that right now. So let's redraw, and we get, oh, another green. And this separates into some smaller floors. So I think we'll place that as an action. There's no harm in doing that. Sometimes you might want to wait for certain abilities and things. But we have now got, I know bird's eye view is not the best way of showing this. We have now got 2 floors here, sandwiched in these pillars. And so that is halfway towards doing it. It's not exactly halfway because we need to fill this up, find another green floor, or a multi one could go on there. Let's say this one, so we'd want to fill this up with pillars, get a green floor out of the tile and put that up there, fill this up with pillars, all the while invaders are messing about with us and getting in the way, and then put a multi or a green small room on top. That's 4. You don't have to put anything in this room, and in fact, you can't put anything in this room if you want it to count. That's 4 greens, so then as an action on your turn, you could place the spire on top. Excuse the prototype paper spires, they're going to be all fancy in your version, and they've had to come all the way from America. They got a bit crushed up, sorry spires. You pop the spire on, whether it's been revealed or not, you destroy the boss of that element, and you get a bonus, so you can choose from, rebuild all the walls, draw 2 floor tiles, roll 4 dice, or draw 3 shards, and you need to do this 4 times with 4 different elements of the game. You also get to remove 5 of the tokens of that colour from the bag, so they'll be less likely to come out as invaders, but also that means they are less likely to come out as shards. That's basically what we're looking to do in the future, but we've got like a second floor on that. Nothing remaining, so we're going to have to build those back up. Then we would move down, and we get to look at our first boss. So it's the water boss, Soke. Water invaders cannot be destroyed, so they can be moved, they can be crystallized, they can't be destroyed though, until that boss is defeated. We get 2 invaders, and they're 2 blues as well, so they want to go on the pillar preferably, and then on a blue spot, so they're going to get in the way. I can't destroy them, so I'd probably then draw a medium tile, I'd redraw it, because we are going to need blue later. Alright, keep it out. Get 3 shards, or they're all blue. But we could get a multi-tile with 2 of the same for Lily's turn, and she gets her dice. She's got a couple of wilds, and she's got a blue. Start working over here, because as soon as we get this done, that's destroyed. So you can start to see early on, there are only a couple of invaders coming out. They're not too much of a problem, but you start to define these things, and eventually we're going to want to split this up so that, you know, we have a wild on here so we can start to change the colour, and then you need 4 of that colour. This can be your first one of whatever colour you're turning it into. You know, we're going to want to change this colour. Like, you can just put a different floor's colour on there. You don't have to stay matching. You want to match so that you can put spires on top. But yeah, I'm going to want to turn this into a different colour. Not only to keep doing the spires, this would be my first of a new colour, or I could do a multi-floor, of course, counting as one of my first colour, because I need to do this spire eventually, but also I want somewhere for all of the invaders to go. Like, multi-floors are nice, but they're small and they'll get covered up eventually. Remember, when there's no space for the invaders to come in, they'll start destroying the walls and then eventually destroying your ether core and defeating you. And as the game goes on, not only are all of these powers going to start to be revealed, like earth invaders can only be on pillars. So that means, hey, I've got loads of earth spaces. Too bad. If I draw a load of greens, they can't go on those spaces. I have to have pillars on there first for it to matter. So any green I drew right now would go straight into knocking this down and defeating me. Terror Wing here. In the supply step, roll 1 fewer die for every air invader in the fortress. So every white invader we had. And then the fire boss, Furno. After the invasion, destroy all pillars that are under fire invaders. So they're going to be knocking me back. This is just the starting setup. There are loads of other bosses and powers to be using. You'll have 1 of each element in your game. You have, like, after the invasion, if any fire invaders enter, discard a floor from the reserve. Only the air spire may be completed. So, you know, whatever happens, you'd have to suddenly shift your focus to air. After the invasion, destroy all pillars in rooms with 2 or more fire invaders. There's some scary things that can happen with them. So you have to balance up what's coming out here. What spells have I got available from the shards? What space have I got on these tiles? And what ability has just come out? Because you can see, like, you can see from the back which element is going to come out in which order. So you can see, oh, blue's coming out first. Maybe I want to race to try and do blue, because it's going to be activated the longest, but is it going to be the worst power for how you're going to be playing this? There are loads just in this prototype as well of different heroes with special abilities as well. We've got the Pyromancer. When they place a spire, they destroy all of the invaders on the board. So sometimes it might be worth not putting that spire down right away, waiting for it to become Summer's turn so she can destroy them all, but they might get in the way of you placing that spire as the turns go on. Violet can discard a die to reroll all of the other dice. Scarlet can discard 2 dice to get a random shard, or discard 2 wild dice to get a multi-floor. The Chronomancer passes their unused dice to the next player that get rerolled along with their normal dice for the turn. There's just loads and loads of different things in here. There's loads of abilities on the floors themselves. Some floors need more than 1 die to put a pillar on there. Some of these floors, you'll want these for the top because you can't actually put anything else on them, including invaders. There's no invaders or more pillars on these, but you can destroy more invaders, draw more floors. They can be present on the other floors as well, but be careful. It warns you in the rulebook as well about getting too many of these because that's fewer spaces for you to be building on and placing invaders on. So difficulty 1 is this kind of setup, and you will have starting heroes to use as well. In difficulty 2, you can use any of the heroes, and you get a random setup if you want of one of each element, or the prototype rulebook as well does have like setups that change the game, like they will break through your walls, diminishes the power of star dice and multi-rooms with certain setups of sets of bosses. At difficulty 3, there are going to be spire adaptation tiles placed next to each boss. So as well as the cards doing different abilities, they're going to have different requirements for the spires to be built. Like one example in the rulebook is that this boss needs the base floor to have at least 18 pillars above it. So if that came out for, say, the blue boss, you might not want to be straight away restricting yourself to one very small tower because you're going to need 18 pillars above it. Like, these are probably pretty good ways of going about that. You'll get extra immediate or persistent bonuses for building that spire with those restrictions on it, though. And then for higher difficulties, you can start out with fewer health, start out further down this track. And that's Aetherspire. I hope you've enjoyed this video and it's given you an idea of what the game is like. This is all just a prototype. It's in crowdfunding now. There is a link in the description to go to that campaign page, see all of the final stuff, what it's going to include, how to get hold of it and make it happen. And hopefully I'll be back in the future with the final version to do a playthrough of it. If you would like to know what I think about the game, I am going to turn the camera on and start chatting now. If you're not interested in that part and just want the facts, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you for the next game, everyone. But if you're still here, I assume that you don't mind hearing my thoughts. Bear in mind, this was a sponsored overview. Hello, I've appeared. So yeah, Aetherspire. I saw this in Essen. I was really intrigued by like any kind of co-op, really. It's the main thing that me and my wife play, and so I am always hungry for more. And I think this does a lot of things different, both like visually and kind of, I want to say tactically, but it's not, is it? Tactilely. Like, it's got a wonderful table presence of building up this stuff, and it's easy to mistake it for a dexterity game when you just see pictures of it. It does kind of explicitly say in the rules, like, there's no balancing and stuff in this. If you knock stuff over, just try and make it back the way it was. You don't have to worry about that kind of thing. We are building things up vertically, and it really matters as well for not just the trying to get 4 floors of the same colour in a row and put a spire on top. That's your main goal. But also, for where these invaders are going to come, especially when you are placing the wild floors as well, they want to go on floors of their type, but failing that, they'll go on the multis. They want to go on the highest floor, though. If there's a pillar that's higher up, so they'll block off those spaces. They get in your way in really interesting ways. And it's got the lovely cart ramp up of, you're only getting a couple of these things at the start, and there's no bosses to worry about. Just do what you can, build up and start doing things. But then as you start to put these spires down and get stronger and get these abilities, start to build up hopefully some shards and some floors and things in your reserve, and start to like get a handle on the game, it starts ramping up with those powers getting increased more and more. As I was saying in the overview, you can see the order of the elements that are going to come out, but you don't know what their actual power is going to be. So you can kind of get an order based on what's going to come out from the floor tiles, what bosses are about to come out. Maybe water's coming first. Let's start to work on water. You're also kind of at the mercy of dice a bit, but there's a lot of scope around that. You've got a free reroll every turn, and I think all of the characters essentially have got like either useful elements that they can spend, or they can kind of discard like 1 or 3 dice to do varying things with them, whether it's like completely redrawing your floors, crystallizing enemies, all sorts of things like that. So yeah, the 3D aspect of it is great for, its table presence. Anyone walking past someone kind of midway through a game with this, with all the various sized towers going on, it's definitely going to make an impression. But yeah, it's important for where those enemies are going to go. It's important for seeing how close you are to being able to put the spires down and actually try and win the game. And that's good as well, that like once you've finished the spire, you can get a big bonus straight away. You knock that boss out of the game, potentially even before it's been revealed, if you want to do it that way. But you also reduce them from the bag, so you take half of their tokens out of the bag, which means that that color isn't as likely to come out to invade, which is good because possibly, depending on how things have gone, your spaces of that colour might have all been built up in getting that spire, because that blocks off that top spot. You know, in this case, we'd still have these green spaces, but somewhere a space is going to have, you know, our fourth colour. This multi can only have one tower built up on it. Are we going to go for, you know, the next blue is going to have a big ability on it, which means that it's going to have less and less space on it. Nothing can be built on this in the future because no pillars can be placed here. It's a really nice balance on these floors as well, of like, you're tempted by all of these, you're tempted by what's coming out of the piles in the first place, although you've got plenty of scope to redraw and do floor crafting here to get more stuff and from the special abilities of the characters. But yeah, it's always very tempting to do quite a powerful thing, but at the cost of less freedom to put these invaders down on spaces. And you haven't really, like, if you start to get into a jam of not being able to put many out, you can clear them out quite well from the abilities, and through crystallizing and building up over a few turns, you will end up with good scope to do a lot of these spells. But yeah, by getting those abilities and things, you are limiting your space, and you haven't really got much space. You've got one kind of health in terms of the walls for each of the elements, but then you've only got 2 health in the base game difficulty before you are destroyed and out of it. And so yeah, there's a lovely balance between, like, that's kind of ramped it up as well. Not only are the invaders increasing over the course of the game, you are decreasing the space available for them by building up and building up. So yeah, the tension is always being ratcheted up as the game goes on, especially like when you get the reveal of those boss powers and they're suddenly in effect. You might have made loads of space for those green invaders, but now they've all got to be on pillars, so does our focus have to shift on these? So we've got a load of pillars available, and that will help us hopefully just get this thing done so we can get that boss out of there. But then all of the others are starting to mess with you as well, and what should our priority be? There's loads of powers as well that interact with the other players, like depending on the heroes that you're playing to, they've got very different powers. Like, I like being able to pass the dice onto the next player that you didn't use, because like you've got the reroll, you've got a spell that you can do to get extra dice as well. So it's, and as if you have kind of not necessarily planned things out right, but you've got to keep your options open to have those invaders on spaces, but also to try and make every element useful, because these wilds are great for putting invaders on, or there's not as many spaces, and they count as a wild floor, but you've got to have wild tokens. So that's only, I think, are there 2 spaces on the dice that can be wilds, so 1 in 4 chance of that happening. Because if you're building up all of the elements, hopefully all of those colours will be useful, maybe more useful based on the special abilities that your characters have got. But deciding when to use those, when to use these spells as well, it's always very tempting as soon as you have got 2 colours next to each other to activate that spell. But will it be more important on another player's turn? Will we want to crystallize these things once more problematic things have come out? Once enemies that are more of a problem have come out, will it be better to, you know, wait till we've got more shards and then we could move a different invader in, so we could crystallize some things that would be able to chain another spell on here? I really like this system. And there are ways to crystallize stuff with our hero abilities, with the floor powers that come out as well. And even at difficulty 1, you know, with basic heroes and just this setup of the bosses, it's still like tricky to win. It will depend on a lot of cooperation between you and coordination to try and get these things built while everything is working against you. But once you do get used to that and want to take it up, there are so many different bosses just in this prototype that I've got. That's all I can speak about right now, but loads of different heroes, loads of bosses of each type, and then the final game's going to have even more difficulties where it's got like complications where the spies have got requirements and things. Yeah, there's just so much scope for more and more in this. You know, it feels like a very different kind of co-op in a really kind of fun and imaginative kind of way. And yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. And I'm hoping that I'll be coming back in the future and I'll be able to show you a playthrough of it. That'd be good, wouldn't it? For now, though, it is on Kickstarter. You can help to make it happen if you would like to. The link is in the description to the campaign page, and that'll have all of the final stuff on it, what you can get, stretch goals, anything like that. If you'd like to see more from me, I've got hundreds of videos on this channel, loads of playthroughs. Hey, maybe the ones I did for Dungeon Drop and Drop Drive from the same publisher. For now though, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you for the next game. Bye.